what are these plants modeling to us? And like, how can these translate into skills being together as people who are complex and wonderful and awesome and have like learning curves and low points as well as like amazing points. Like we're all complex people. We're in complex times and plants are equally complex. Yeah. So I've just been thinking a lot about plants as teachers of how to be in a relationship, how to hold complexity, how to be sort of life affirming towards each other.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm joined by herbalist Molly Meehan Brown. Welcome to the show, Molly.
Thank you so much, Mason. I'm excited to be here.
And thank you so much for doing a round two with me. We gave it a shot last week, and I was having internet technical difficulties. So let's see how it goes this time around. But anyways, let's get to know Molly a little bit more. Molly, what were you like as a child? Were you always kind of into herbalism and whatnot?
I love this question. So I did grow up really comfortable with plants. I grew up in the garden side by side. Like those are some of my fondest memories growing up. My mom had these amazing gardens. We grew up right outside DC. We had an acre of land. And that we had like a chicken coop and there was a pig there when I was born, like these things that are unimaginable now. But she had these amazing, mainly ornamental gardens with just like beautiful flowers. Like I'm very comfortable with a shovel and like garden tools and things like that, but it was distinctly ornamental. And so yeah, I had this connection with plants and definitely with like cultivated like garden spaces and things like that. And that definitely stuck with me, you know, into my adulthood. Though I wasn't really introduced to like herbs per se or wild foraging or anything like that. My dad was also a chef. So like there was a connection with like food there and yeah, like that, there was this sort of like seeds that were planted as a kid that sort of then developed into my adulthood, like love of plants. So yeah.
How do you feel about ornamentals these days?
So it's a good question. I've been on our farm here in Southern Maryland since 2012. So we're going on 11, 12 years. And I remember when I first got here, I was like, every plant that I plant has to have a function and it's all got to be like medicinal or, you know, like a nitrogen fixer. And I was like so hardcore about it. It was ridiculous. And I remember also like the person that was here before me had these like lovely stands of like this bearded iris or these canna lilies that were just beautiful. Yeah. And so I laugh at myself at that season of life because like first off, like what does that even mean to be functional and for who? That's so self-serving. Like what about the pollinators, you know? And now in my life, like some of the things that I love so much about the garden are like these beautiful, like there is medicine in beauty, right? There's medicine in these gorgeous flowers that, you know, it's not just there to serve me in my like medicine or food or whatever. It's a bigger picture. It's an interrelationship. So I'm here for like beautiful gardens. I'm here for beautiful flowers. I love, you know, a good cut flower bouquet from the garden, you know, brought to me from my kids. Like I'm here for it. I love it, you know, and yeah, I mean, there's, you know, we all have understanding that evolves over time. So
That's right. Yeah. I don't want to make it about me, but I could totally relate. I mean, I remember when I was younger, say in my early 20s, I was very hell-bent on being a certain way. And I was so strict about, say, certain dietary choices and whatnot. As I gotten older, I've become a little more lenient, maybe a lot more lenient and stuff like that. But so yeah, take us from your journey as a nature-loving kiddo to say learning more about herbalism and what herb schools did you go to? Who were your mentors and so on?
So my introduction into really beginning to dive deep with plants was an opportunity that I had when I was like 18, 19 or 20. I was in Costa Rica. I studied in San Jose, Costa Rica, and I had an opportunity to do an internship at a medicinal plant farm that was a rural women's cooperative. And it was really like what set the course for the rest of my life. It was a Costa Rican run project. And the idea was to have economic like opportunities for women in this rural area where there were very few. and also growing like these gorgeous, beautiful, organic medicinal plants. And that were then, sold locally at a local farmer's market. And they also were sold for sale outside of Costa Rica internationally. So it was sort of like this coming together between people and plants that just like, I found what I loved when I was 19, and I went and did a whole bunch of other things, including go to herb school and going to undergrad and going to graduate school and all the things. And at the end of the day, it's really affirming to know that like at 19, I really did know what I loved. And I've basically sort of been on that track since. After that experience, I was in Southern California for a while. I lived in Ocean Beach in OB, and there was a little herb school there with John Finch. That was Self-Heal School of Herbal Medicine. So I got to know the plants of the Southwest of the US. I worked at a little Ocean Beach food co-op, and they sent us to herb school because I worked in the herb department, and so we could better serve customers. So that was the sort of like more first formal experience. The other experience was just like actively farming and getting to know like plants and people, and sort of more traditional recipes / remedies. And then I returned, after California, I went back down to Costa Rica, and really the majority of my adulthood has actually been there in the South Caribbean side. And just learning by being. Plant medicine is still like a really, really large part of the culture there. I've worked at a few different places, but learning from, my friends and family, my partner is from Costa Rica, from everyone there, because this medicine is just like, development has been so rapid, but also somewhat recent. So there's so much knowledge that's still alive, that it was just like through living that I've learned this medicine. And I've had Patty Blas Martinez, who's an ancestor now, was one of my big influences in plant medicine. Another friend, Miguel, have just taught me huge amounts. Alda Cook Campbell. These are all like beloved mentors to me in Costa Rica. When I came back to the States unexpectedly, in my adulthood, to walk with a family member who was going through cancer at the time, I came back to DC. I hadn't really planned on being here. And I ended up going to school with Kat Meyer at Sacred Plant Traditions in Charlottesville. So she has a beautiful herbal training program, very energetic, centered around energetics. So I had the opportunity to study with Kat, which was just so beautiful. I feel like going to school with Kat was like going to school to learn about life. Of course, we studied plants, but it was so like just an amazing experience, and just such a life-affirming space. And Kat's really life-affirming person, and an amazing person in our community. And then, with Wild Ginger, we work with lots and lots of different people. So I've had the chance to work with all of these amazing teachers who are friends and colleagues now for over 10 years. So that's a little bit about my sort of formal and informal herbal journey.
Yeah, I guess a few things came up for me. I was curious, did you meet your husband on the first trip to Costa Rica, or was that like way down the line?
No, it was way down the line. So
Okay.
We've been married. We've been together probably for like 8 years. And I was there in like 2002 or something. So yeah, there was a long time that I was there before we knew each other. It's a real small town. Kind of know everyone. Sure. Where we are. It's rapidly growing now, but yeah, we've been married close to 8 years, and we were together let's say like 10 years. So yeah, I was around before that. Yeah. Is
he herbally inclined as well?
That's a good question. So I always say, he is Afro-Costa Rican, and he and like his family members and community members there are like permaculture before that concept was ever stolen, kind of a thing. Like they
right.
this stuff.
Yeah.
In the way that they lived, he grew up in that area before there was a road, before there was electricity. Wow. Like, they are this, right? Like in a way that I could never study enough to ever know, right. Grew up growing all of their like bush tea was every single day. They grew all their food. They had a farm, they did grow some crops for cash money. There was a boat that would bring in like salt and a few other supplies. Like wow. They were like, they know how to be in relationship with land, beyond anything I could ever comprehend. So like, right. Yes. And so he's an herbalist because that's literally like the fiber of who he is and his being, but like he's not as sort of focused on it, I guess, as I am in that way. But yeah, definitely.
Love that. Yeah, no, he's way more of an herbalist than I am.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. I guess something else that came up is I feel like when I chat with you, it's the people and the plants that kind of come up a lot. I want to say you're also an herbalist teacher and whatnot, but do you kind of find your role as an herbalist is like a connector for the people and the plants and the plant people to the plant people, if you will?
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love teaching, and I do teach like as part of our community herbal program, and both online and in person. And I teach minimally in Costa Rica, mainly because I want people from Costa Rica to be able to sort of we work with local folks, and I want them to be able to like teach their own medicine and tell their own stories. But I do enjoy teaching very much. And I think I started to say this last time we talked, but one person was talking about like there's the artists and there's the dancers and there's the, these people that have like that are very skilled in these arts. And then there's like the artists that create the spaces where people come to dance or they come to create their art. And I think that's that like connecting place and creating the spaces where, like we bring together these herbal conversations or these herbal people. And I very much like, I can see that in you as well. It's like this very natural place for me to be, and something that I really thrive and enjoy doing. So a lot of my time is definitely spent creating the spaces where herbal learning and conversations and relationships can be built.
Love it. Yeah. And I do want to chat more about some of your upcoming events later on in the episode, but I also do want to say props to Kat Meyer as well. That's really cool. I don't remember if you brought that up last time when we tried doing our podcast last time or not, but yeah, what a treat to get to study with Kat. Every time I, take a class or see a keynote from her, I'm just kind of blown away by her speaking style and just her power in general. So very cool. Well, also speaking of last time we gave this a shot, I asked you about, if you wanted to talk about any particular plants, and then you kind of said instead of that, you want to talk about, say, what plant is really alive for you in terms of, say, relationship and stuff like that. So I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, well, I've been asked this question a lot, and it's a very common question, and it's surely one that I ask people too. Like sometimes that's a great like opener for people. It's like, what plant are you really like connecting with these days or whatever? But I've been thinking so much more, and what's been really alive for me as of late is thinking about plants as teachers with respect to like being in relationship and in community, and just how abundantly they teach us the skills that I think we so need in the world right now. And so plants like how they teach us to take care of each other, and through droughts or through storms, through the bounty, through the hard times, like what are these plants modeling to us, and like how can these translate into skills being together as people who are complex and wonderful and awesome and have like learning curves and low points as well as like amazing points. Like we're all complex people, we're in complex times. And plants are equally complex. And yet, so I've just been thinking a lot about plants as teachers of how to be in a relationship, how to hold complexity, how to be sort of life affirming towards each other. So, I think I gave a couple of examples last time. So I was thinking about like rose and nettles, or like nettles specifically, like how it has this like sting, right? And it, you touch it and it's like, ouch. And like people can be like that, like prickly, but then they're like deeply nourishing, beautiful medicine. And so it's like, how do we hold this complexity? And the same thing with rose, like thorny yet beautiful medicine for our heart, and to hold us through like grief and hard times. I think one of the other things we were talking about was plants with 3-year-olds. Those are the little herbalists running around,
right?
Just like looking at plants through this lens. So like so much of what I see this year is like all these plants growing on edges. So like all these blackberries are where like the forest comes together with the meadows, or tons and tons and tons of mullein, yarrow, like all these plants that are on these like edge spaces, and how edge spaces and these plants can be teachers of like, what are the possibilities of what can happen when these two like really diverse places come together, right? Like more can happen at these edge spaces than can happen in either one of those spaces alone. And so like, what does that look like in humans? Like when we come together with really different identities or different politics or whatever it is. So yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot with plants lately and just like looking at plants through these lenses as of late. So yeah.
I love that. Did you say that this is going to be a keynote for an upcoming conference that you'll be speaking at?
Yeah. So I'm teaching, I'm going to dive into this a little bit, like some of my meditations on this at the Black Walnut Herbal Conference, which is in Pennsylvania in April. And then we're actually doing a whole free online conference in January. It's called In Relationship, and it'll be like a gathering of herbalists. It's going to be completely free. It's online, exploring what it means to be in relationship with each other, with fungi, with the land, with the cosmos, looking at what it means to be in relationship and community. And how do we hold that? Like, what if that was the center of our work as herbalists, is like honoring relationship above everything, right? Like, I mean, there's so many ways this weaves into herbalism, right? Like not taking more than we need, or being stewards of the land, or, all these kinds of reciprocal, respectful kind of ways that are infused in a lot of the teachings that we all learn. So we're going to do a conference about it as well. And I'm speaking about this as well at an upcoming at Black Walnut conference as well.
What about the relationship of herbalist to herbalist with differing opinions? Is that going to be discussed at all?
Well, I mean, during that conference, we'll see. Like, we put the call out, and I'm always amazed to see what comes to life when people put in their applications to speak. But I think that's a really big part of like what we're trying to focus on, is like, how can we learn the skills to be together in spaces and hold, the complexity and the nuance of who we are. I mean, when it comes down to it, the world's, there's a lot of intense stuff happening.
Yeah.
And so we have to learn how to hold each other through that. But then I just like screen, I zoom back with herbalism, and you just think, at the root, herbalism is an art and it's a tradition. And so every single one of the ways that it is an art and a tradition is because all those traditions of plants and people have evolved along each side of each other, right? So this tradition of herbalism is perfect for that tradition. It may be really different from this tradition, and that's because of the relationships that have developed in that specific lineage. And there's not a right or a wrong. It's just, that's the relationship that has evolved. And so, I mean, that's what herbalism is. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, there's just like such this vast, there's no super finite, like this is right and this is wrong kind of a thing,
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking earlier about, like, say, how we were very intense about, like, say, dietary choices or your lack of enthusiasm for ornamental plants and whatnot, but now you're a little more lenient because you like a bouquet of flowers. HerbRally, really one of our goals is to promote all different types of herbalism from all different backgrounds. And I'm just asking selfishly that last question because it came to my attention. Someone emailed me about a potentially, like, say, unsafe piece of content that HerbRally has, published. And I had to do some like soul searching. I'm like, is this actually unsafe, or is it just not according to this other herbalist worldview? In the end, I did some research, and I'm like, well, maybe this is potentially unsafe, but like, I want to be here for everybody, of all different backgrounds, of all different styles of herbalism. So, yeah, I've always thought it'd be a fun, or maybe it wouldn't work out so well, but like host some sort of online panel or in-person panel with opposing viewpoints where people were able to have, like, say, a mature discussion around controversial topics in herbalism. But
I mean, the reality is, I think, like, to me, it can be really, I mean, so much of the work that we've done at Wild Ginger is bringing together people that have really different identities.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what I hope to do and keep conversation around is building the skills to be able to be in conflict.
Yeah.
In a way that is generative, and that we can come out. We can't launch anybody out to outer space, right? Like, we still have to be here together.
Yeah.
That doesn't make excuses for abuse, And we're all capable of harm. And when we
Yeah.
cause harm, oftentimes we're like, I want to slink away and hide. Like, I didn't mean to do that, but we don't have the tools to move through it in herbal spaces. And so many times what we see are the same punitive sort of cycles that we don't want to see. Like politically, maybe we're against, seeing maybe the justice system, like incarcerating people and all these kinds of things. And yet we can be punitive in the way we treat each other. And so alternatively speaking, and I'm not an expert in this, like I am a student in this big time, and I fumble and I cause harm, and I've been through that exact experience. And it's what we do when we cause harm, because, having a safe space, like, of course that means different things to different people, and different people are going to have different needs, different sets of experiences, different identities, etc. But when we do become aware that we've caused harm, it's like, how do we move through that? And like the conversation that we can have to then move through repair. And like, there's amazing teachers out there doing this work that I think can really help, not only the world, but also like the herbal movement, because you see these things come up a lot. And so I can definitely say, like, I've had great support and teachers like Rochelle Faithful, and that have helped, Wild Ginger, definitely. Like, we've come up with a set of community values and agreements to try to hold this, because this shit ain't easy, right? Like, we can all cause harm. Okay, but then how do we get the tools to move forward when we do? And like, how it's not even just like mature conversations, because we can be as mature as we want, but like, I literally think we're unskilled. I think we literally need the tools. And that's what I'm looking at the plants towards, because like, I'm looking through these amazing teachers and social movements that are doing this work, but also I feel like the plants are literally doing this work and holding us in this as well. So that's sort of, like why I've started to look at the plants in this way, if that makes sense.
Totally. So maybe after the call, I could get the link for that free event that you're hosting. And is that through Wild Ginger Herbal Center?
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, we'll talk more about it later, but I don't think I've really mentioned this yet. Molly is the founder of the Wild Ginger Herbal Center, which I want to say used to be Centre Roche.
Back in the day. Yep.
Back in the day. Yeah. Based in the Maryland, DC area, as well as Costa Rica, but we'll get to that later. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about something a little more lighthearted, but I really do appreciate everything you said there. Also, you mentioned a name. You said something Faithful.
Rochelle Faithful.
And she's not an herbalist, but she's
they are
expert
a
in
folk
that.
healer. They're a folk healer. They have a website, but they're one of many like conflict practitioners that are doing like incredible work out in the world. And it just happens to be a colleague and a friend, and they're incredible. But there's many other people that I'm always happy to share resources and connections for sure.
Wonderful. Okay. Sweet. Yeah, I'll include their work in the show notes as well. But all right, well, let's talk about some kids herbalism. Something you're definitely an expert in. What are some of your favorite ways to teach herbalism to children?
Well, good question, Mason. So one of my favorite ways, and the way we actually started the kidsherbalism.com project is because when like the world shut down in the pandemic, I was sitting at home here, and there was a lot of people sitting at home like, what are we going to do? And so I just started doing all of these herbal activities and projects with our kids. Like our world, like every single day was just a sort of, open discovery. And I think one of my favorite ways, and this isn't actually exclusively for kids, but especially with kids, but also with our adults, is learning about developing relationships with plants through our senses. So really trying to, bring herbs to life through smell, through taste, through feeling. And so that's how we've structured that program is through the senses, and really trying to help, like not only dive deep with the relationships, but I also think that that's like the way that we can, like, those are ways that lessons stick, you know what I'm saying? Or our memories stick. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that I remember the sting of the nettles, or I remember, like, we're specific.
Yeah.
What happened was when my stepson would always bring the neighbor kids over. And like one time, one of the parents came down, they're like, why is my kid's arm in a rash? And I was like, that's exactly what happened. My stepson had like played a joke on him, but
that's funny.
But yeah, I mean, I think like for me, one of the fun approaches has been, and it's been definitely like focusing on our senses. Yeah.
Are you making incense with them, or how do you incorporate, say, the sense of smell?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, tea, obviously the
Tea, yeah.
aromatic or they can smell their teas. We do a lot of teas, like just in the household. But yeah, we've done, I mean, Io and Gozi has taught many a herbal incest class here on the farm,
Oh, cool.
as well as in Costa Rica. Gosh, we've done like some work with essential oils, like at the end of making a salve or something like that. My kids are aware of like essential oils and kind of like smelling, and we haven't had necessarily like the deep conversations about like sustainability of, all the stuff.
Right. That's for later on.
Right. Exactly. Well, step by step, but yeah, I'm trying to remember, gosh, what else have we done on smell? A lot. We've got a lot. Gosh, we've now been doing this for like 3 years with the kids herbalism program, but
so yeah, why don't you tell us more about the kids herbalism program? Is that your membership site? Because I want to say you also have a membership site as well.
Yeah, so we have a membership. We have a Bloom membership, which is for adults through Wild Ginger, and then for kids herbalism, it's a monthly membership. And so it's this like beautiful global village of people that have contributed for the last 3 years now to building it. So once a week we have a brand new class that's oriented towards young kids. It's kitchen, cooking, herbalism, gardening, nature, all kinds of different classes. People have done everything from like learning our plant parts to, I'm trying to think. Oh, pesto we've got a lot of pesto ones. But I've taught a couple of pesto ones, but then there's this guy, Farmer Daniel, who taught a beautiful pesto class. And then he made a pesto song and sang it on his guitar. It's like so beautiful. Like people have poured so much love into this project. And we've had like Gio Edwards, I think I mentioned last time, does one called Sowing Words and Seeds, where we're, planting our seeds for the garden, but also we write out our intentions or like our hopes, and we plant them with the seeds and then we see them grow. Like just such beautiful work. So we do a new class a week, and members get access to the brand new class every week, as well as the entire archive. So we have literally like over 100 classes that are there, just trying to get kids. Yeah, I just was thinking, I grew up, in a garden, but I didn't know this knowledge as a kid. And so what if kids are getting this knowledge, earlier on, and it's not like this huge learning curve at 19, 20 when a lot of us start kind of getting into this stuff. So if we're, so anyway, I mean, just like thinking about my own experience, obviously that's not everybody's, but yeah, so it's a beautiful labor of love, and a lot of people have contributed from all over the world. We've had people do like traditional baking from Uganda, or like, it's just been an amazing experience.
Yeah, I want to say, I think I interviewed Bevan Claire, and she said she started at like 12 years old or something like that.
I believe.
Yeah. Are these like, say, video classes and everything?
Yeah, so all of those are video classes. And then also, because we always try to think of like accessibility, one of the things that we do for like maybe learners that for whatever, like maybe they have accessibility needs, we do a printable activity guide for each one. So each of them also have like the list of supplies, the step-by-step instructions that can be read, as well as like the photos going sort of like in order. So that also makes it accessible if somebody doesn't necessarily have access to live internet or, et cetera. So yeah. They get a class and an activity guide. That's
super robust. I love that. Is it kidsherbalism.com with a Z? I don't know why I want to say that.
No, it's KIDS. No, kidsherbalism.com. KIDSERBLISM.com.
Yeah, what a neat offering. And I won't spill the beans because you told me not to last time, but I know you are working on a super exciting kids herbalism project coming up, which I'm technically involved with in one way or another. So yeah, but that's all we'll say.
That sounds good. It's a nice little tease for a really beautiful, exciting new community offering.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I can't remember if I asked you if you wanted to do the Giving Flowers segment. Did I tell you about this?
Yeah, you did tell me about the Giving Flowers. I love that you do this. I mean, I have a gratitude that I want to give to so many people. And I think, a lot of the teachers that I had already talked about, with like Patty and Alda, as well as Kat, John Finch, et cetera, but also like the people that I get to be in community with on a very regular basis through Wild Ginger, which is like Karen Culpepper, Rochelle Faithful. I already mentioned Io Ngozi, Gio Edwards, Holly Poole Cavanna, Olivia Fite, Yuma Bellamy, Samaria, Malco, Lupo, Pissarro, like Susanna, all these people that I love very much. And it is literally, I just think to myself on a regular basis, what great fortune I have to be able to be in community with these people that are not only like incredible herbalists that I get to learn from on a regular basis, but are just incredible people that just show up for each other and for me and each other, like when nobody's looking, and just have this sense of integrity that is just inspiring. And so I'm sure that there's more. My parents, my family, all these people that I love so dearly. I'm just, my community is like who I want to give flowers to. And yeah.
I love that. Yeah, you really have developed quite the community. And just for the listener, I don't know if I explained it too well, but basically for the regular listeners, you know what this is. I was basically asking Molly to shout out some people who have helped her along her herbal and life journey in general. And we call that giving flowers. Right on. Well, thank you for sharing the giving flowers. I read on your Instagram account, I want to say it's been a couple weeks since I wrote this down now, a quote, and I want to say it was affirmation of the week. If I want to do the work well, I need mentors to guide me, elders to accompany me, and accomplices to encourage me on. I am not supposed to know how to do this alone. Did you write that, or was that someone else that? Well, okay.
So when you actually read the text of that post, it's Chani Nicholas, the astrologer, who's so incredible. And so that was actually the affirmation that came up in my app that week, which is always right on and perfect.
Very good. Well, I love it. It caught my eye, and I was hoping maybe you could just explain to the audience why you love it, or a bit more about it.
I mean, I think that rings so true for our work as herbalists. None of us are not in relationship with others, right? Like we are all a part of a system. We are all interrelated. And it's both a gift as well as a responsibility as far as like the knowledge that we have as herbalists, like we receive, right? And we have these elders that have coached us along the way or shared with us along the way. And then also we have that responsibility to literally be vessels to keep passing that on to those who are around us. So I think I was actually writing that quote about business because we have a business program. But when you read it just now, I mean, that's why I posted it, was with respect to that. But I was just thinking, gosh, it's so true about so many things and about, herbalism in general.
Well, yeah, it's actually kind of perfect about everything we've talked about thus far. And you actually are segueing nicely into my next questions on my question list here. I did want to ask you about your business program. But before we get to that, I'm just wondering, and maybe this is too broad of a question, but if I were to say, Molly, can you give the audience some just general herbal business advice? Does anything come to mind?
Oh, well, general herbal business advice. I mean, I think for me,
or specific. Yeah,
general or specific. Yeah. I can say this, having been through being in a business about, definitely over a decade now, 12 years, whatever it is. The biggest thing I would encourage people to do is to develop, genuine relationships along the way as much as you possibly can. Because there's always going to be ups and downs. There's always going to be learning curves. There's going to be challenges. But what will carry you through are those authentic relationships that you build with people over time. So I would focus on developing those relationships, one at a time as much as possible. And I think for sure that's been definitely what the most meaningful part of the work that I do, but also what has sustained us.
Yeah. 100%. And what Molly's saying or not saying is don't just go to herb conferences and hand out business cards and think that that's building a relationship. I get some like cold outreach to be on the podcast on occasion. And, sometimes I'll look into them or see if we have like, say, mutual friends on Facebook and try to get a little bit more background information. But I want to say 99% of the people that are on the show or scheduled to be on the show, I personally know and trust, you know what I mean? So it really is so helpful to have these genuine relationships. And it's not just like, oh, I want to get to know these herbalists to advance my professional career. I like genuinely love these people. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
I feel you, Molly. Yeah, great advice. Something else that came up when I was perusing your Instagram related to business, something about how to build your relationship-centered business mission and vision. Do you have a segment in your business on how you go about creating that mission and vision for your business?
Yeah, that's the first work that we do in our business incubator program, is really visioning about doing the work around what is your vision, what is the mission of what you want to work, and creating also like for your personal life, for your life goals in general, but then also making sure that we're crafting our business and our business model so that they're in alignment with each other. Because, if you're interested in doing in-person classes and opening a brick and mortar, and yet your goal is to be like location independent and like a digital nomad or something, like that might not work so well. So how do we sort of align, do the visions about like, what do we truly want for our lives? What are our goals, professionally and in the work that we're doing in business, and how do we bring those together and make sure that it makes sense and really craft a solid model that's in alignment with each other. So the big first section we do is a lot around vision, mission, and everything that we do. Like, I think that's so many of us as herbalists, and the program is oriented towards herbalists and birth keepers, but a lot of us have work to do around money, and like, it's a complex thing. And,
Totally.
that's some of the work to do, but also, how do we, so many of the times that we're doing like our studies around herbalism and birth keeping is like, we learn our craft and we're like incredible at this work. We have all these skills, and yet we don't really have the skills to sort of be able to sustain our livelihood and do so in a way that doesn't feel icky. A lot of times people are like, business, ugh, and super corporate or maybe greedy or exploitative. And it doesn't have to be that way. Like, a business is a structure that holds our work. And it is what we choose to do with it is like how we can move. So we can absolutely be like mission driven and doing relationship-centered work that's full of care and authenticity and value, and also sustain our livelihood. So we really want to bring that into like the work that we're doing, around doing our business, holding our life's work, right? We got to learn the skills to be able to sustain this work, because what I realized over and over again is like, there's all these herbalists that just like don't know, they can't keep going because they don't know how to hold a business. So like, how do we skill up? Like, how do we skill up so we can sustain this work? Because I really think the world needs herbalists and birth keepers and wellness practitioners. But if we don't have the skills to be able to sustain our work, and a business is one way to do it. It's not the only way. And I'm not saying it is, but it's a common way. So that's why we began the program, is because you just see too many people bowing out because they don't have the skills to sustain. So, yeah.
Well, and Wild Ginger Herbal Center is technically a business. Maybe it's a nonprofit. Is it a business?
We are. So I have a master's degree in nonprofit management. No, but we're a business. We are a business. Yeah.
And no one looks at Wild Ginger Herbal Center or Molly's work and goes, ugh, that's gross. Like, it's great work y'all are doing, and the world's a better off place for it. You know what I mean? So it's I think that's what you're trying to say. Like, herbalists should learn how to do this stuff, because it's super important. I guess a couple questions. Are you teaching this business course, or are you, again, kind of like getting a bunch of people in the community? And just in general, can you tell us more about the program itself and where our audience could learn more about it?
Sure. So it's a business incubator program. It's on our website, wildgingerherbalcenter.com. I crafted and designed the program because I really thought back of like, what is it that I wish I had known like 20 years ago when I was starting? Like, what are the skills that I needed that I've sort of like stumbled and tried to figure out over the last 20 years? I do teach several of them, a lot of the models and a lot of the core things, but we also have guest experts. So it's an ongoing program. We have live guest expert trainings from people that are both in the herbal field as well as sort of slightly outside. So we've oriented towards the skills towards herbalists and birth keepers, but we have amazing guest experts. Like last week, we just had Christina Lynch, who is from Trident Consulting, did a whole course on business incorporation and like, what are the different business models? How do you register at the federal and state level? Like these little details that are really important as you start a business, and then she's going to teach another one that's on bookkeeping and tax planning. And we have ones about, confidence and perfectionism and GMP compliance, like all the things. Yeah. So we've got guest experts, we've got live coaching and Q&As. So it's there's on-demand video lessons as well as live trainings, ongoing coaching in a group coaching. It's a beautiful cohort of people that come together that are super supportive of each other and really are like diving in to building the structure that's holding all of our life's work. So it's been a joy. It's been a joy.
Yeah, all the fun stuff, the accounting and are you an
LLC
so and whatnot?
Yeah, it can
Taxes.
Be so intimidating. Yeah. But so many herbalists are like, we're wearing all the hats, right? Like you're the herbalist and you're the bookkeeper and you're the marketing and you're the so we literally address all the things because so many small business or like micro businesses, really, like most herbalists are like a one person show. Is like, how can we do these things in ways that are approachable? We try to, be as just in the same thing with herbalism, we try to be approachable. We don't want to be intimidating. We want to make this like easy to understand. And we don't want to scare people off.
Amen. You mentioned GMPs. Have you met Asa Waldstein at all?
I haven't.
I'm interviewing him next week. He's an expert in that realm. And anyways, maybe I'll do like an intro email for you, but he's a great guy, really great teacher on the subject of GMPs and all that stuff. But why don't we talk more about the Wild Ginger Herbal Center? And again, during our last attempt, I read this. This was from your website, and I really liked it. I think it encompasses Wild Ginger Herbal Center quite well. And you say you can expect a wide variety of participants in our courses that hold different strengths, experiences, perspectives, cosmologies, values, and worldviews. We are an intergenerational community. Among us, we hold many different identities, faiths, cultures, abilities, ethnicities, races, genders, languages, and more. So I just really like that. And why don't you tell us more about the Wild Ginger Herbal Center, both in Maryland and Costa Rica?
Sure. Thanks. So I think that was actually some of the visioning work that I did with Rochelle Faithful, who I talked about earlier, who really helped me get clear on expressing who we are as both a small family business, as well as the community that we hold, because everything that we do is about community. So that was kind of some of the work that we did a few years ago about clarifying who we are and what we're doing and what are we trying to do here. So we're a community-based herbal center where we actually began in Costa Rica, in the South Caribbean of Costa Rica. We do herbal education as well as birth-oriented education from everything from, kids, like we talked about with Kids Herbalism Project, up through adults. We started with projects around adults. We also have a center in Southern Maryland, where I'm from. And so we're here on Piscataway land. We do all kinds of herbal education, community herbal program. We host the Chesapeake Herb Gathering, which is actually going to be next year. I think we're moving to a biannual model. It's
a lot.
It's a lot. It is a lot. It's a lot. And we live in 2 different countries and we've got kids and all the things. So, but it's also, it's lovely. We love doing it. We did it here on the farm last year. It's been a traveling conference that's been in different areas of Southern Maryland as well as Maryland. I think the year you came, it was in Frederick, which is
Yep.
Yep. At Fox Haven, which is a beautiful education center. And they do a lot of herbal work, super important herbal work in Maryland. So and then we do a lot of online programs. So community, we do Costa Rica, Maryland, and then online programs. We've always really done our best to work with people, like you said, that we've built relationship after relationship with, tried to make sure that we're, working with, that the stories that are being told around herbalism are representative of all the people that actually practice herbalism. So we've been doing this for 12 years. It's our love, it's our passion. We want to make sure that herbalism is alive and well and thriving at the community level. So I'm trying to think if there's
that's great. And I'm glad you brought up the Chesapeake Herb Gathering. You're allowed to do it every other year. I think that's totally reasonable. And you know what? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. It'll just be that much more special when it happens. And I'll second what you say. Herb conferences are a large reason it was one of the main ways I met people. You know, like you and I had email communication probably for years before I actually finally met you in person at the Chesapeake Herb Gathering. And I'm friends with Erica Gallatin to this day because I met her at the Chesapeake Herb Gathering as well. And I just want to say,
by the Red Barn, like,
yeah, exactly. And yeah, I really love that event. The audience is probably annoyed when I say this, but it truly is one of my favorite herb events. And I've only been to it one time, but it's just a magical place. And I like the time of year that you host it too. I want to say it's September usually. Fall. Yeah. Fall. Yeah. What a great time. And yeah, I can't say enough. So it'll be 2024 will be the next Chesapeake.
2024 is the next Chesapeake. Yes.
That'll be a great time. Do you still have the domain chesapeakeherbgathering.com?
No, I'm doing it all in Wild Ginger now. I too many domains.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah.
I was like, let's segregate and put this in like, these separate parts. And I was like, nope, let's keep it simple now. So it's all at wildgingerherbalcenter.com. Yeah.
Well, good. We talked about the Wild Ginger Herbal Center, both locations. We talked about the Chesapeake Herb Gathering. I wanted to plug, because I love Brandon Ruiz, I wanted to plug his Caribbean herbalism course. And I want to say that's actually in person in Costa Rica. Or am I misremembering that?
Right. Yeah. So I actually just talked to Brandon yesterday. So he is teaching. We have an amazing lineup of courses coming up at our center in the South Caribbean of Costa Rica for this winter. And Brandon is going to be teaching his actual, it's his course that he's been running for a while. It's a Caribbean herbalism course, but this is the first time we'll ever be doing it in person. And it's really exciting to be doing it. You know, obviously the Caribbean is vast. We're on the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica, the South Caribbean side. So it'll be really fun to be able to do it in person, you know, in relationship with the actual plants. And so that course is specifically designed and it's open for people of the Caribbean and BIPOC, the Caribbean diaspora, as well as BIPOC communities. So there is a specific invite there. Nice. But it's going to be an amazing, amazing class. In addition to like all the field studies that Wild Ginger brings them on to, you know, learn both Afro-Costa Rican herbalism, as well as, you know, indigenous brewery traditions in herbalism and chocolate making and all of the things. Cool. Brandon's going to be teaching classes. I was just looking. So he's teaching, he'll be doing 2 different medicine making classes. Caribbean energetics and flavors. He'll be doing plant walks, also Caribbean history and background, wow. Caribbean plant monographs, sea medicine and ecology, and then a whole session like on histories and connections. So Brandon's an incredible teacher. Absolutely wonderful. It's like our absolute honor to host him. He came down years ago when we had the Elang gathering, and it's like an honor to have him back teaching with us. And it's going to be really, really special. So yeah, thanks for shining light on that.
Of course, the Elang conference, that was kind of your event that you host in Costa Rica, yeah?
Yeah, so that is, it's like a mini conference.
Okay,
like,
gotcha.
We can't like do hundreds of people. Yeah. We had the Elang gathering. I think that was 2019. And I guess that was like the year. It was like after we did that, like a few months later, everything shut down for a while. So we haven't done it since. It'll probably happen sometime coming up. Not sure when, not this winter, but maybe the next one. But yeah, it's a lot. Again, yeah. Like it's not only a conference, but it's like international, like
right.
There's a lot to it, but it was a really beautiful experience and super special people that came together. And I'm really thankful for it.
Well, I'll have to go to the next one in 2027 or whenever you do it again. But I just got to say, I first became aware of Brandon when I worked at Mountain Reserves. We started this thing called the Grants for Plants, which is essentially money for different projects. And I was on the committee to choose the winners. And I remember we all just were so infatuated with Brandon, and like he was like one of the clear-cut winners for us with the Charlotte Herbal Accessibility Project. And super cool dude. And I actually get to hang out with him for the first time in person at the Great Lakes Herb Fair coming up here in September. And I'll probably do an in-person interview with him. So I'm stoked.
I'm so glad that you get to see him. He's going to be at Black Walnut, and nice. You know, I'll see him there too. And I'm like, I'm like looking at his fall schedule. I didn't even know he was how are you can you like transport yourself? Like, how are you? Like, he's gonna be
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's like, a lot of conferences.
Totally.
Very cool. Well, I think this is kind of in line with what we've been talking about already. I've been asking some herbalists this on the Herbalist Hour. If I were to say, what do you feel the herbal community or industry needs most right now besides more herbalists?
Ooh, I have two instincts there. One is really like, I think we need to like learn the tools to hold each other, and to kind of move through our times. And I've already kind of spoken to that, so I won't anymore. And then I think the other thing is, I think we need growers. We need some herbal growers. Like, there's a lot of consumption happening, and having access. And I'm not like saying that it's not incredibly hard work. Like, farmers and growers are literal heroes, and the lengths they go to grow our medicine and our food is unfathomable for most people. It's hard work. And so I know it's not for everyone, and like, massive thanks to everybody that does it. But with all the habitat like loss and over harvesting, and also massive amounts of consumption, like, we need growers. I mean, I think all of that other stuff, like, can be talk about balance and how to repair those things, but I think there's a big market, not only a big market, but a big need for herbs, and sustainably grown herbs, ideally, and more localized grown herbs, because there's so many fossil fuels that are happening, shipping things all over the place. So yeah, I think about growers a lot.
Great answers. And I want to say, if I recall correctly, Susan Leopold, executive director of United Plant Savers, said the same thing for that question. And I guess the other thing I'll say is, Amanda harvested a bunch of dandelion roots from our yard the other day to roast them for like coffee. And we just had a good laugh with how much work she put into it. And there was just this tiny little handful of roasted dandelion roots. So mad props to the growers out there. And I also want to say, I saw on social media somewhere that Zach Wood's Herb Farm is dealing with some flooding from the Vermont situation, along with Sage Mountain. So I'll leave a link if they have any sort of support situation for that in the show notes as well. But yeah, great answer. I don't know if you had anything to add to that otherwise.
Just that I love Susan so very much. And it makes sense, because Susan's like, sees every day about around the conservation conversation with medicinal plants. And so, yeah, we, to be able to grow in a sustainable way and create these networks, of local sort of food sovereignty, like connecting the conversation of food sovereignty with herbs, right? And not having them separate, like these local, decentralized, community-based systems of access to food, access to medicine. So absolutely. Go Susan.
Go Susan. That was a fun interview too. So check that one if you haven't yet.
At one of my herbal mentors in Costa Rica's front porch, probably paying dominoes, like, I don't know, at least 15, 20 years ago. That's where I met Susan.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wild. Yeah. All interconnected. So let's get to know Molly a little bit more. What's a hobby of yours outside of the realm of herbalism? It's a random hobby.
Gosh, a random hobby. Oh, Mason.
Put you on the spot. Or is all you do herbalism?
I wish you'd asked me this like before toddlers. I feel like I'm 5 years deep in toddlerhood. And I'm like, hobbies?
Yeah, that's why don't you go like an old school, like something you wish you could do right now, but don't have time
what
for.
I wish I could do is like sit down and read a book undisturbed. Glorious to me, literally. I just packed a book. We're going on a family vacation next week, and I like packed it. I'm kind of laughing at myself, but I'm like,
I'm not reading that.
Maybe, I'm trying to think what else. I mean, I love live music. I love going to live music. And I've been doing that in a really long time. But yeah.
Susan Leopold also said live music for that.
So funny.
That's funny. I love that. Cool. Well, we'll do a Let's Get Deep question. This is a random question from the Let's Get Deep Friends edition. See what happens. This will also put you on the spot.
Great.
I did that one last time. Oh, what was your favorite cartoon show as a young kid growing up?
Okay. Cartoon show. Oh, I know. So I was one of those kids that we were never really allowed to watch TV. Like my mom would put on PBS like in the morning for 30 minutes. And it was usually, what was his name? The Neighborhood. what was his name?
Oh, Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood,
Yeah.
right? So that's not a cartoon though, so I can't say that. So I remember Gem. It was like Gem and the Rockers or something like that. I don't know.
Wow.
Super cool. A lot of neon colors happening. This was 80s. So I remember liking Gem a lot.
Wow. I watched PBS and
Gem was not on
also,
PBS. I think
Oh.
Gem was on some other, like that was like Saturday morning special. I got to watch
Interesting.
like Channel 5 or something.
yeah, I'll have to look that up. That does not ring a bell to me, but
I might be older than you, Mason. I might, I don't know.
I was born in 1984 for what it's worth.
Oh, I'm only one year older than you.
Yeah.
Also might not have been so into Gem. It was on there, like I remember like He-Man and She-Ra was like
I like to, man.
before or after. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, a couple more questions. Actually, just really one more question. What's your big why? Why do you do all this, Molly? What's your goal here?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I don't know if I can say why other than because like my why is because I deeply love people and plants, and it is this unquitting motivation, I guess, that's inside of me. Like it's my source of inspiration and source of hope and my like just my absolute love and passion. And it has been since, I was like 19 years old, cutting what they call Wani Lama, which is lemon verbena in Costa Rica for the first time, but in community with people that like had escaped the Sandinista, during the revolution in Nicaragua. Like there was just like this place where people and plants come together and also, informant by justice has just always been a big source of inspiration as well as like a big teacher for me. So I don't know, it's never really waned. It's something that it's definitely evolved and changed over time, and what my work looks like year to year definitely evolves, which is probably good. I am a Gemini, so I'm like a little bee visiting this flower and then visiting this one and always wanting to learn, and that's like all herbalists, right? It's like a lifelong path. I don't know, it's just something inside me, Mason. I don't know how to explain it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel something similar. So it is hard to describe. Maybe that's an unfair last question, but I think you did a great job. You know what? I actually am going to ask you one more question. So this was from an interview that I did with Jim McDonald and Erica Gallatin, and I really like the way Erica phrased it. It's not her question, but I asked of her. It's an HerbRally audience question. But what do you feel that you bring to the herbalism community that makes you different from others in the community? And Erica kind of had a fun phrase for this. I'm going to butcher it, but it was something like, it's time to like let your shine on. You know what I mean? You like brag about yourself for a little bit. Like, what do you bring to this herbal community that others might not?
Gosh, Mason, I don't know if I have anything like that other people don't necessarily. I feel like when I think about, I'll put it like this. I don't know that I have something that other people don't have, or I'm necessarily better at anything better than anyone else at all. Like for real.
Yeah.
I feel like I just try my best to complement what's out there and be of service in ways that, if I see like there's a hole or, something that we can do to be able to serve our community, I do it. I always have my eyes open in that way. So I always thinking about that with respect to business too. I always encourage our students, like, don't compete, but like complement. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, but like, how can we create space for us all to thrive? And I really do believe that's possible. And that's definitely a lot of what guides me, with respect to herbalism and then the work that we do.
I love that. Yeah, I think that is one of your strengths is building community and connecting the plant people to the plant people. And thanks so much for taking the time, and thanks so much for doing this again. I know those internet, I feel like I'm so much more happy with how this interview turned out than that struggling for 20 minutes.
Internet. We have to thank the internet for this.
Yeah, right, exactly. Really, really appreciate it, Molly. Any closing thoughts or anything before we wrap up and get out of here?
I just want to honor you and the work that you're doing, Mason, and thank you for the work you're doing in the spirit of community as well. And just thanks for, reaching out to me and shining light on me. And I just appreciate all that you're doing, and I'm thankful for you.
That means a lot to me, Molly. Thank you so much. All right. Well, thanks y'all for listening and watching, and we'll talk soon, Molly, and see you in the next episode of the Herbalist Hour. Take care.
Thank you.